Today we're excited to welcome to the show Tammy Cannon. Tammy is an internationally recognised artist known for her beautiful and vibrant weaving. Her work has been featured in the NGV and she has produced commissions for local and international clients, including one of our favourite brands, Mecca. To celebrate 10 years in the textiles business, Tammy has recently brought her artworks to life through NFTs, which we are very excited to discuss with her today. Welcome, Tammy.
Hi, girls. Nice to see you.
Tammy, we always start the same way with our guests so people can get to know you a little bit. What was the best thing that happened to you in the past week?
I actually have some exciting news, which is that I have just discussed within the last week that I'm going to be exhibiting at the Sydney Contemporary Art Fair.
Oh, wow.
So, which is super exciting news. So I've actually got so excited. I've started this week working on a new piece, which will hopefully be one of the pieces in the exhibition. So that's been very good. Good week.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Tammy, if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why?
I've actually someone who I would love to have dinner with is an artist who's no longer alive called Mark Rothko, and I have an obsession with his art, and he was just an incredibly interesting man who really explored new avenues in art, and I think he would just be an amazing artist to be able to have been able to pick his brains and find out how he came to some of the conclusions he did with his artwork. So yes, that would be like my ideal night.
I'm sure you could find out a lot over a couple of wines. You're actually the first person that has added an artist to that question. So there's a first for everything on this podcast. And if you could be a company, a stock, a project, who would you be and why?
I would probably be I would actually choose to be a foundation. And again, I'm going down the art path because I suppose that's where my passion is. But it would be the Joseph and Annie Albers not-for-profit organisation. And the reason that I would actually choose them is they were a big influence in the Bauhaus movement. And they just were, they met each other. She was a textile artist. Annie was a textile artist. And Joseph Albers was the one who really explored the colours, squares, and together they were this gorgeous couple and went on this amazing artistic adventure. And they were sort of around, I think, 1888 to 1994. So we're sort of talking about that era. And they just do now, the actual foundation does some incredible work. And I know recently they're actually opening up a new museum in Senegal called Bibi, which is for about community and culture. And they are really looking at bringing art into the area and, helping to re-energise and revitalise the communities. So that would definitely be a foundation that I would support, and I think they're doing an incredible job.
I have to say, I love this question because we always get such great responses from our guests. But Tammy, I would love to go back to the very beginning and ask, have you always been an artist, and how did you get into weaving in particular?
Well, if I go right back to the beginning, probably my creative kind of creative discovery came out when I was very, very young, but I probably didn't notice it because I was maybe 7 or 8, and we used to have a house up at Lake Eildon, and I'd sit by the fireplace and I would sit with this beautiful kind of latch hook cushion, and I would spend hours like pulling the wool in and choosing the colours, which is quite amazing. So I was so young when I did that, and then I never really thought about it. And then I did my schooling and all of that. And then it wasn't until I when I was pregnant with my first child, I then, which is Lexi now, I decided to try ceramics. So then I realised, I'm really enjoying the creative aspect of ceramics. And from there I moved into jewellery. And in the jewellery area, I would design jewellery, and I actually grew quite a big business over 12 years, but where we'd sell wholesale and I also had a retail shop all over Australia and New Zealand, and had quite a few people making. So it was a business. And I think it was at that point, it was really became clear to me, it was the creative area that really was my passion. And the business part was not something that came to me naturally. So after 12 years, I kind of left that a bit uncomfortably because I realised that it was no longer serving me. And then I moved into my tapestry and weaving. That was my artistic journey.
It's so cool that you can pinpoint a moment in time that you kind of like really realize something that you were passionate about, because I feel like for a lot of people that's quite hard to do. But the fact that you can say, you know, you were sitting on the couch at Lake Eildon and picking apart, like it's pretty cool that that's something that you can talk about.
It's actually interesting because I don't think it was until I started weaving, and I actually came across the weaving not looking for anything but just trying to create a piece for our home. So we were renovating our house, and I just went to the wool shop. I'd seen a weave that I loved, and I thought, I'm going to try and do this. So I went and I bought the wool and I started weaving, and it had this familiar feeling and just this sort of this comfort that it didn't occur to me until that point. I was like, what is this feeling from? And I worked out, that's where I had this feeling. But I think just going back to the jewelry business, which I think is really important, one of the things in the jewelry business, it started out as a creative journey and turned into a business. And that was one thing I struggled with, because once it lost the kind of the passion for the creativity, came about the number of sales of pieces of earrings and bracelets and how much they cost. It's a very hard balance, business and creativity, to have both parts of your brain working at the same time.
Can't wait to get into that a little bit more, but I have to say I was laughing to myself because when growing up I always wanted to be an artist, and I think I can pinpoint the point where I realised I was never going to be an artist. Definitely did not have the talent, unlike you.
That's interesting. You probably did, but you just didn't pursue it.
Never explored it.
Didn't hone it enough, maybe.
So for people that haven't seen your pieces before, you can head over to your Instagram and see, you know, these big, beautiful physical weaving pieces. But we're really interested, how did you get involved with the NFT space, and why did you decide to create NFTs out of your artwork?
The thing is I think when you're an artist, you're always exploring and you're always getting curious. And that's one thing that I have always, you know, I think I'm a curious person and always have been. And I think that once I was doing the tapestry, which then turned into my own form of weaving, which I kind of invented a style that was maybe a little bit different to just your standard square tapestry at that point. And I get restless really quickly. So I either want new colours, new shape, new design. And then I heard about NFTs and I was just like, what is this? And it just fascinated me. Like, how can I reinterpret my work in a digital form? And I just needed to look around the corner. So it wasn't something, I just kept hearing about it. And, you know, there was a lot of talk. I listened to a lot of art podcasts when I'm weaving, and there was a lot of talk about the non-fungible tokens. And there was the whole Beeple sale, which was really the point where everyone heard about it. I think it was at Christie's, and it was for $69 million, and this artist sort of out of nowhere. So there was just like all these things popping up everywhere, and I was like, I need to go and have a look at this new artistic form.
So in the art community, are people really talking about NFTs? Is it something that's, you know, up for discussion, or are a lot of people kind of shying away from it?
I think that, you know, it is really split. I mean, I think that you've got, I think if you're in the art world, you need to have a look at it. Like you just need to understand what it is. It may not be for you. You may just be totally all about physical art, but it is very real and it is happening. It's definitely a different medium. I think the artists that really succeed in the digital art really are people maybe who've been in graphic design, or they've kind of been in the digital world. I think for traditional artists, it is definitely a harder jump. And the more I went down this rabbit hole, the clearer I am why that is. And it's been a fascinating journey.
You say on your website that your ultimate goal is to produce a collection of work that makes you feel calm and connected. You've created a digital dreamscape collection. Can you tell us a bit more about this and I guess how it really differs from your physical pieces?
So the Dreamscape collection was how this came about. So once I decided that I wanted to work with NFTs, my first port of call was I actually reached out to another artist, another traditional artist who had moved into that area. And so she said to me, really, you need to get on Twitter, onto Clubhouse, and you need to just start, working with the community and understanding and learning. And so that was my first step. And then once I'd done that and I'd sort of understood a little bit more, I decided I wanted to, animate the work, because you can do a digital NFT, which is just a still image of my work.
Yeah,
but I wanted to actually have the movement.
So much cooler.
Well, I just felt like that there was no point just doing a still of my work. So I kind of did a bit of research, and I ended up reaching out to this guy called Jurien Hoss, who is in the Netherlands, and he did some work with Hermes and just like incredible work. And I really just sort of connected with what he was doing. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to send him a direct message and say, hey, do you want to collaborate with me on NFTs?
Love that. No shame.
Well, why not? And he, I don't know, again, a lot of what I do runs on intuition, my art, the decisions I make, doing NFTs. I don't overthink. I just jump and then go, oh, I'll see what happens. So I sent him a direct message and he was just like, oh, this is interesting. He didn't even know what NFTs were. So we ended up having like, because it was still really new. Like I know it wasn't that long ago, but it was still super early days. That
I assumed when you reached out to him it was because he was an expert in the area.
No, I just liked his work and I saw he was a motion designer. And I was like, he could probably translate my work in a way that I would like it to be translated. And you're probably right. I probably should have thought about the NFT aspect, but no one really kind of was doing it. So it wasn't easy to find someone to collaborate with on who wasn't doing their own NFT. So I thought I just need to find like another digital designer who'd be interested. So I reached out to him and we had a great chat, and he was a bit like, whoa, I don't know what you're talking about. Sort of, I'll go and look at it. And we ended up having a beautiful friendship, and we came up with this idea, Dreamscape, which was basically the whole concept was to take my work and make it sort of a meditative experience. And I really just gave him free rein to do his sort of interpretation of it. So we had a lot of, and do have a lot of respect for each other, but both of us on a very steep learning curve.
Well, I can imagine, because as Maddie said, I expected that this was someone that like had a complete idea of how to make digital NFTs move. I didn't realize you just reached out to someone that just was, an artist of their own. I love that.
Well, I actually had to teach him how to get a wallet and get Ethereum and all of that. So it was fun because, it's something like you go on that journey together and you then really go for the highs and lows of it.
Oh, it's a whole experience.
How can you come on here before and say, you don't know how to do tech, we're joining onto a podcast thing, but you've gone and taught yourself about the NFT space. I now don't believe you.
Okay, so I have a confession. Yes, I did work out all of that. Like, it depends how much I want it, but I do have to give some credit to my husband, Jonathan, because we would be up till 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd be torturing him, going, but we need to get a MetaMask. We've got to get a wallet. We need to get Ethereum. It was just, oh my goodness. And then the other thing was the people. I sort of met a whole new community. It was like this whole like underground world. It was just unbelievable. And literally it goes 24/7. Like I was exhausted beyond.
It's interesting that you say that because we have been told that, you know, the NFT space really does open you up to new communities. Are there any other reasons that you find NFTs valuable? Like, I understand that you felt like you had to jump into something new and you're excited to try it. But did you do this because you think there's a greater value in creating NFTs?
Okay, so I want to read something to you, which I actually just heard today, which I think is interesting. So when you're hearing this, so for instance, NFTs, so they had a massive growth in NFTs. Sales reached 17.07 billion in 2021, up from 82.5 million in 2020. That's a jump of more than 200 times. So that was 2020 to 2021. So first of all, like, you know, as an artist, I was curious about what could my NFTs do? How will people relate to them? How will they react? Can they have, you know, I've been fortunate enough for my physical work to have an impact on people. Can I reinterpret it for the digital work to have the same impact? And put it this way, it's a lot easier on my hands, let's be honest. You know, like it's different. It was a different mental, you know, it's still hard work creating it, but a different experience from that tactile. But I think, you know, when you're kind of hearing figures like that, you just have to question, like, what is this in the art market? And I'm kind of jumping here. The other thing, so I have to laugh. So I actually didn't only decide for a moment there I was going to do NFTs. I was then going to be in the metaverse. I spoke to an architect who wanted to build a building in the metaverse. I'm not joking.
I love it.
So we were going to have a gallery in the metaverse with my NFT art on the wall. After I realized that was probably a little bit more than I could do, but it was just never ending. And since, and it still just continues to evolve. So there was so much to explore on this journey.
Soph and I have this idea to do a series on the podcast, and it will be called something along the lines of like things we know nothing about. And I think that the first episode has to be the metaverse, because it is just like whenever we start to go down this path and we get all excited and you think that you start learning and grasping it, and then it's like you read something about the metaverse and you start all over again because it is just crazy.
Yeah. It is absolutely crazy. But it's also incredible. And I don't know, I think if anyone's skeptical about it, which I know people are, I think the deeper that you get into it, the realer you can see it is. I know that's not a word, but you know, you can see that there is something going on, and you don't have to be a part of it. And if you are going to be a part of it, you're going to need a lot of energy and a lot of time.
Good to know.
Fair.
Yeah.
So do you think that this space, the NFTs, have been good for artists?
I think NFTs have been absolutely incredible for some artists. It has, I think the thing that I find really interesting about NFTs, it's very based on communities. So, you know, looking after each other, you know, when I was there, everyone was sort of buying each other's NFTs and supporting each other, having like clubhouse rooms to pump each other up. So it's a much more community based. So the community looks after you as the NFT artist, and as the NFT artist, you airdrop NFTs to your community and you offer them lots of perks. So it really is an incredible world in that way. Whereas I think with physical art, you know, with my physical art, I'm just really on my own and I'm weaving and people are contacting me, and it's much simpler. It's a much more solitary journey, whereas I think the NFT, it's much more of a community based. Did I answer your question?
I'm totally sold. Yeah. I think it sounds awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is, I think, especially for a younger generation, it is incredible. And I think but there were also, people of the old generation also doing amazing things. But I still think that physical people traditional artists, I think it's pretty clear that their success rate is not like people who've been in the digital art world. And I think that a lot of companies at the beginning thought they'd find all these top artists who they would then translate into digital art, and they slowly realised it isn't about that. It's like all these people who, young kids, 18-year-olds who are suddenly selling, NFTs for millions and millions of Christie's and Sotheby's, who weren't original classic artists or traditional artists. So I think that's been a huge wake-up call in the NFT world, that artists who think they can jump into it, not so easy.
I think that's one of the things that Mads and I have really realised when we were first speaking about NFTs and what the value was. I think we were trying to compare apples for apples, art against NFTs. They're the same thing, just one's in a digital format. And I think we've come to realise through all these conversations that we're having with people is that the community is a huge thing. And also for you, if you're a part of this community and can get your artwork in front of so many more people, then it must have so much more benefit, not only so that you feel like you're a part of a community, but you kind of get to explore all new avenues of art with people that are around you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I think that the digital interpretation, from my experience to date, it doesn't feed my soul like the physical art. And I have to date, I'm so glad I went down it, but it didn't give me that same satisfaction. But I also think I have seen some artists who really come up with some incredibly unique ideas. It's a different brain wave to normal art. That's all I can say. Do you know what I mean? It's a different...
something that Maddie and I might not understand. Yeah. We would love to say that we do, but honestly, if you saw me draw a stick figure, you'd probably be disappointed, Tammy.
Okay. Now, can I tell you, that is a really good point of what you said. I was listening to a podcast today. Do you know you could draw a stick figure and do so well with NFTs? I'll tell you why. Because it's not about... Yes. Necessarily, yet there is actually a possibility.
There's hope.
It is about the community you build and what that stick figure offers and what is behind that stick figure. So it's not necessarily about the image. It's it's the utilities behind it, and that doesn't exist with art. You don't sell a piece of art and go, well, now you're part of a group that can go on yachts all over the world. Do you understand? So you become part of a group, which doesn't. Yeah. So the actual, okay, how can I explain? So you could buy a stick figure. I mean, even the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yes.
They're cute. Yeah? But, I mean, I wouldn't call them kind of like Monet or, but it's the whole philosophy behind, which is really what NFTs is about. And I don't know, I don't think people realise the importance of the concept behind it.
My brain is ticking away and I'm thinking that we're going to, I'm imagining 2 stick figures. It's going to be the YGC community in NFT land. We're going to work on it.
Maddie, how can I make stick figure turn into yacht in Europe over summer? How does that work?
How can I finally become the artist that I dreamed of?
Well, you've got YI at least, so yacht in. I'm sure we could work out something.
That's amazing.
Let's do a collaboration.
Yeah, Tammy, we're going to need your help.
I hope that I'm giving you some I really do believe it's the creativity is not in your image. The creativity is the concept behind it, and and the heart behind it, in a different way to the heart behind physical art.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense because I have to say I've looked at some of the NFTs that have gone viral, and that's where I think so much of my confusion has stemmed from, because it's how can these go for so much money? But I'm really interested to hear, after deciding that you did want to get involved in this space, what were the steps you took to actually create the collection? You touched on a little bit earlier about the research you did, but can you really sort of talk us through what the process was to create?
Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing I would say to anyone, process to start with, you've got to be on Twitter. That's where it pretty much all happens. It's moving over to Instagram a bit, but still really Twitter is the main area. Clubhouse is also, that's also a lot of talk going on there, and Twitter Spaces. So that's a good starting point to inform yourself about what is going on in the NFT world. Once you've done that, you then really need to think about what it is that you are trying to share with your community. What are you offering them? So are you offering them an ability to support a charity? I think Deepak Chopra has a NFT. It's called NFT for Goods. It's called Meta Seva. So he has NFTs, and the whole thing is about for not-for-profit industries. That's what he raises.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's his. So really, and then there's one of my favourite NFTs. It's called World of Women. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Heard of them? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is something where I could pinch myself, because also whilst I was creating one, I was also buying NFTs, and I saw that come up, and it was like, when it first came out, and I was like, oh, a little bit what you're saying. What is this? I mean, it's cute picture of a girl, but I didn't get it. And they have just gone berserk. Like, I wish I bought one. Like, I was so close to buying one, but their whole philosophy, which is actually, again, so if you say when you're thinking about with NFTs, their World of Women, which I love, it's a community celebrating representation, inclusivity, and equal opportunities for all. So according to research published in November 2021, female artists accounted for just 5% of all NFT art sales. And so World of Women is on a mission to change that, to get women more involved. So I know I'm digressing a bit. So the first thing is to actually think about what message you want to put out there and what you want to share with people. And then you can go to the creative. And, I sort of had my existing creative, but I needed it to evolve. So, and then you can either digitally find the work yourself, whereas I found Urian, who did the motion, who did that design. Because I think you've also got to work out, like, what is your skill? Like, you can't be everything. Well, some people can. But I think you got to focus on, like, what is your skill? Is your skill getting out there and sharing what you're doing, or is your skill the creative? Or so what is your skill? So that was sort of my process. I then shared it with my Instagram followers, which was pretty awesome. We had a great response. I think the hardest thing for me was the disparity between my physical art and the price of the NFTs. That's always a bit of a hard one with an existing artist, like how you price it. And I think the other thing was people trying to onboard. So get a MetaMask wallet, get Ethereum.
Yeah, so that was actually going to be a question that I was going to ask. So when you dropped your first collection, I had signed up to your mailing list of how to buy an NFT, because I had no idea, but I had followed your page, and you sent out this really concise, like, beautiful email of what to do to sign up. So I guess I kind of wanted to understand, like, what were those steps and how does someone buy an NFT? Like, where do they buy it from and how do they do that?
So when you create an NFT, you have to choose what platform you want to create it. So you can use OpenSea, which is your very kind of, everyone's on OpenSea. You can be high end, low end, everything in between. And then you've got more private platforms that you have to be invited to be part of.
Oh, there's exclusive ones.
Yes.
Didn't know that.
Oh gosh, yeah. So there's like, oh my God, there's lots. There's Super Rare. There is, there's also different platforms depending on which cryptocurrency you use.
Yeah.
So whether you use Ethereum or
Solana.
HBAR, exactly.
Yep.
So, so I decided to go on OpenSea. I was going to try and keep it as simple as I could, and I really just sent out that email to share with everyone how to onboard, which was go to MetaMask to get a wallet, to buy Ethereum, go into OpenSea, and then you could purchase it through there once you had your Ethereum, which sounds really easy, but not. So I think until for the mass market, until NFTs, you can just use your credit card, which I think it will get there. I think it's going to be very difficult because the people who did buy my NFTs, it was a lot of work, and it was talking them through. And, a lot of people went on the waiting list for my NFTs, but it was like whether you could get over the line to actually go through that process.
Well, I mean, either they'll start accepting credit cards or, things like Ethereum will be much more adopted by the general population. So it'll be interesting to see which sort of takes off first, I guess.
I think a lot of the platforms are looking at some already do, being able to accept credit cards to get it to the masses. But then people are like, okay, I've got my NFT. Now what do I do with it? So then they've got to understand the concept. Why does it have value? It's a little bit like, having a stamp collection. The stamps go up. There's a lot to get your head around.
What was one of the most valuable things that you think you sort of learnt throughout this whole process, getting involved in the digital world?
I think being part of the art world in a different format and actually maybe appreciating how much I am grateful for the simplicity of what I do have going. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think,
sure.
I'm just being really honest. It was so much more complex than I could have imagined. And it was such a rabbit hole, and it was just relentless. And I still stay in contact with all the people who I met. And I love that I met some awesome people, and it's been incredible watching their journeys as they've developed their NFTs. It's amazing to watch. It really is. But I think just a great experience, like literally going on a crazy holiday,
I don't know if I'd call like setting up an NFT and like doing all crazy hours till 2 a.m. in the morning a holiday.
I mean,
but,
if maybe that's you on a yacht.
But it's kind of that buzz. It's like you get a buzz from it. There is something like when you launch your NFTs and, you've got them up there, and it's a bit of a high that you do get. And, if someone buys one, it's like, well, there is that. But I think it's like with anything, if you want to master anything, you've got to be passionate about it. Yeah. And I think that to be a master of NFTs, you just have to be all in. And I know lots of people who are, and they're just loving it, and they're there for the ride, the highs and lows.
I have to ask, do you know anyone that's bought your NFTs and what they're doing with them? Because for context, anyone that hasn't seen your work before, they obviously are motion pieces and they're so beautiful. Do you know if anyone's, using them in a gallery or in their house, or are they just holding it for value?
I think, I'm not sure. I think someone has put them up on their television. So cool. They're actually, that's what their plan was. So it's just literally, playing or still on their television. I have actually got arriving shortly, which I'm excited, from Token Frames, some their frames that you can actually put the NFTs on, so that they can just play. So they come in all different sizes. So you can put them on the wall, like just like a piece of art. So you just buy a big frame and it just plays it on the television. But I think it's, to me, I wanted to cover a few things. I wanted to I wanted them to be beautiful, and I wanted them to have an energy that is representative of my work, and I wanted it to be an experience. But I wanted to be part of something that was new and happening as an artist, and I wanted people who took up the opportunity to buy one of my pieces, if they just hold on to it, maybe being one of the earlier people who've got into this, it will be of a benefit, down the track. I bought quite a few NFTs myself, and I've also held on to some of my own, because I think in years to come, to be in that year when NFTs first sort of started, it's pretty awesome.
For sure.
100%.
Tammy, I don't really want this chat to end because I'm really enjoying it, but I do have one final question for you. Do you have any recommendations for resources or any advice for someone who is really interested in learning more about this space, whether it be creating or buying NFTs?
My advice would be to there is it's called NFT Fish Tank, which is on Instagram. You can join that group, and it's a group of people from they're all over the world, and they meet on Thursday nights in Clubhouse. So they're on the Instagram that you can connect with them, but then they're on Clubhouse, and it's some really great speakers, and everyone shares what they're up to. So I would definitely get onto that. And then the other, and I can actually share that with you, the link. And the other thing is definitely Twitter, I would do. And there's also I think it's based originally from RMIT, Mount Token. She has an Instagram, and they've actually the last couple of nights, I think even one's running tonight, people sharing and talking about NFTs. So I think that would be really good, good starting points to get involved.
I feel like once you also follow a couple of these accounts, it's really easy to find many more because they just post all the time. So it's easy to find that like community that you've been speaking about.
Absolutely.
Tammy, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. We've absolutely loved hearing about your process of creating NFTs. For anyone that wants to find out more about your art, is there anywhere that you wanted to plug where people could find you?
The best area is probably to go to Instagram, which is Tammy Canutt, and you'll find out what I'm up to, and I'll share if I'm dropping any new NFTs or if what I'm up to with my work. And there's always new and exciting things happening.
Very exciting. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us. We have loved chatting to you, and we highly recommend everyone going to check that out.
Thank you. So lovely to chat with you both and just share the NFT journey, and hope that it's been useful to others.
Thanks, Tammy.